Thank you. I'm trying to work through in my mind some historic analogies that will help me understand where we are today. And I guess the most profound evidence of government intervention in the marketplace in my lifetime that destroyed a monopoly and created innovation and entrepreneurship to a level that was unimaginable was AT&T almost 40 years ago. And they busted up into regional companies and then spun off in many, many different directions. The mothership, AT&T, kept the production of telephones in Western Electric, which was an important part of the economy in the Chicagoland area, but now they're virtually non-existent. It isn't as if the iPhone people had to go to Western Electric to get permission for a new invention. The innovation just raced right past that model, that AT&T model that we had accepted as being virtually a public utility for so long in the United States. And it really gets down, Mr. Michikowski and Ms. Hine, to a question which I'm still hanging on to, and that is, what is your ambition as an entrepreneur and innovator? Is it to be acquired at some early point in the process and to make out like a bandit and then look to invest in others who are doing the same? Or is it to build the next iPhone or whatever it happens to be, some variation, which will take a lot of time and patience and investment to happen? According to Ms. Hine, the numbers are 10 to 1 that it's just to be acquired and move along to something else. And of course, the acquiring entity may have the best of intentions or the worst of intentions. It's hard for us to say. They may want to get you out of a competitive mode because you look menacing to them, or they may think this is such a great idea, we want to own it and we want to develop it. So, Mr. Michikowski, before Ms. Hine, would you comment on that?
Thanks very much for the question, Senator. Over the last 4 years, before I started Beeper, I was a venture capitalist at an early stage firm called Y Combinator. There, I helped invest in 400 companies over the span of 4 years. I will say that the best founders that I met at Y Combinator started their company to beat Google, not to sell to it. And I think that the limitations that are put on competition right now by some of these extremely large tech platforms are reminiscent of the AT&T days, especially for the earliest companies at their earliest stage. There's a story from the 1950s about a company that made an addition to an AT&T telephone called the Husha phone, which was a silencer that you would put around the phone, and they were banned from making it because AT&T had monopoly across the entire stack. That is very similar to companies like Apple, which makes the phone and also makes the App Store that distributes software. That's one of the reasons why we're supportive of Senator Blumenthal and Senator Blackburn's Open App Markets Act, which would go very far to leveling the playing ground for startups to compete on the App Store.
So give me your reaction to Ms. Hine's 10 to 1 number. It isn't even close. It's like 10 times as many are looking for acquisition as opposed to public offering.
When companies start out, they are definitely, at least the best founders that I know, are not looking for an acquisition. They're looking to build a product that could potentially change the world. That's one of the unifying factors, I think, among most startup founders. I think, I could speak to my case. In our case, our company, Pebble, we ran out of money, and so we had to sell the company as the only kind of exit. That was definitely not our intention when we started out. We had, very large and high goals. But having an exit route is, useful. It's not definitely not the thing that we set out to do.
And I might say to Ms. Hine, if she's still following, I hope she is, I voted for Sarbanes-Oxley, and if you would go back to that moment in time when we had that debate, we were dealing with corporations that weren't shooting straight, and they weren't leveling with people in terms of the actual books, and people were losing a lot of money for misrepresentations. And it's true that there was, there'll be a difference of opinion even on this panel about what I have to say here. It's true that there are more regulations imposed, but the goal of those was similar to a goal of antitrust operations, so we can have more honest dealings with the public than we did before. We had some terrible instances. I can go through the long list. Sure, it cost more for corporations to provide information that was reliable and trustworthy for consumers as well as investors. But if you want the integrity of the marketplace, which I think distinguishes the United States from many other countries, there's a price to be paid for it. And I just say that in defense of Sarbanes-Oxley.
Senator Grassley.